Today, we're covering a case from our neighbors to the north, Canada, the case of a mother who goes missing in 2008, but a missing persons report isn't filed until 2012. It's time to turn on the searchlight for Andria Meise. Welcome back to Brainscratch Searchlight. I'm John Lorden. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here today and for caring about these cases like I do. This case takes place in a part of the world where it's one of the last trips I took back in 2019, an area in British Columbia known as Kelowna. At least that's where the case starts. We're going to see that this case is going to move around a little bit. But that's where Andria Meise was living before she decided to move somewhere else. Let's learn a little bit about Kelowna. It's a city on Okanagan Lake in the Okanagan Valley in the southern interior of British Columbia, Canada. The name Kelowna derives from an Okanagan language word for grizzly bear. Kelowna is the province's third largest metropolitan area. In 2019, it was estimated that Kelowna's population had grown to over 217,000 people in the metro area and over 142,000 in the city proper. Starting here with a poster put out by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the RCMP, we can see Andria Meise is missing. Here they have her age listed as 40. I think that's when this poster was actually printed or distributed. According to the information I'm hearing, she went missing at the age of 30. You can see we don't have a lot of detail in terms of her clothing, other description, distinguishing marks, all of these fields completely empty. Even the date last seen, they only have kind of the year and a generic date, January 1st, 2008, which once again, according to the information I'm hearing, isn't quite accurate. They do say the last location that she's known to be at is Grande Prairie. Let's jump over to some other information, and let me just be clear with you guys right now. There's a lot of kind of conflicting information in this, but we're going to bring someone onto the show to help us clear some of that out. Over at crimestoppers.net, we have a profile for Andria Lucille Meise. Race, Aboriginal. She is a female standing at 5 feet 11 inches tall. According to this, once again, different sources are giving us different heights. I'm seeing everything from 5'8" to 5'11". For weight, 141 pounds, brown hair, brown eyes. For identifying features, they're saying she's native, but appears Caucasian. And for the file number, we can see that at least at this point, the case is being handled by Grande Prairie. I can tell you this case seems to have moved around. I think it was originally opened in Kelowna, might have moved somewhere else in between there, and then actually wound up at Grande Prairie. Her age at this point would be 42 years old. And as a matter of fact, I believe her birthday's coming up next month. Andria Lucille Meise apparently left Kelowna in 2006 to relocate to Fort St. John, British Columbia. This is the last time any of her family heard from her until a family member saw her in a Tim Hortons restaurant in Grande Prairie, Alberta in 2008. Unfortunately, the family member who saw her was not aware that Andria was missing and did not make contact or confirm it was her. While she resided in Kelowna, Andria lived a high-risk lifestyle, cycling in and out of substance abuse, but she always maintained contact with her family and always made them aware whenever she was moving. And something I'm getting very strongly from the articles I've looked at, this is someone I think a lot of us would consider a free spirit, someone that moved around quite a bit. Let's jump over to justicefornativewomen.com. Unfortunately, these are really the only two photos that you're going to see on this case. And I've even asked a family member for some additional photos. Unfortunately, there was a tragedy where those photos were lost. So we don't have a whole lot of more photos than this. I've got one other one, but I'll save that to show you guys later. Andria was 32 years old when she was reported missing from Kelowna, British Columbia. So interesting. This is a little bit about what's frustrating about this case, because the time frames for when she was actually gone missing, it's really hard to pin that down. We heard in that last description, well, she moved away in 2006, and then in 2008, someone saw her. Here, I think they did the math, and I don't think they did it quite right, because if she was seen in 2008, I know her birthday, based off the last one here, May 16th, 1978. So she was actually 30 at the time she went reported missing, but we're going to see there's just discrepancies all over this. Let's see. Authorities say that she was last seen alive in Grande Prairie, Alberta between July and September of 2010. More discrepancies. Some sources state that her family had not heard from her since 2008 or even 2006. Andria was known to move between Dawson Creek, Fort St. John, Kelowna, Grande Prairie, and Vancouver. We're also going to get a couple of other areas mentioned as we're going through this. So just to try to figure things out a little bit, what we do know about the time frame, which once again, very loose, but some point between 2006 to 2008, living in Kelowna, decides she's going to move to Fort St. John. Why? I can't find in these articles. I don't know, but I have a feeling our source later is going to be able to fill us in on that. From Fort St. John, last sighting appears to be in Grande Prairie. That's this area out here. So the total distance between Kelowna going through Fort St. John and then to Grande Prairie is 822 miles. I think that's probably somewhere in the 1,200, 1,300 kilometer range. Let's jump over to the Nelson Daily for some more details, especially about that sighting. I'm really trying to pin down the last known sighting of her so that we have something solid to kind of lean on. A family member saw her in a Tim Hortons restaurant in Grande Prairie, Alberta in 2008. Once again, this one's saying 2008. The last article said it was 2010. Unfortunately, the family member who saw her was not aware that Andria was missing and did not make contact or confirm it was her. While Meise resided in Kelowna, she lived a high-risk lifestyle, cycling in and out of substance abuse, but she always maintained contact with her family. It's believed that she moved to Calgary sometime in mid-2008. So now we're getting another potential location. Jumping over to, and I don't know if this is, I think it's Pincher Creek Voice. This is almost like a police blotter. There's a bunch of different things that are being reported, but one of those things is Andria's disappearance. Andria last seen sometime between July and September. This one's reporting 2010 by a family member in the downtown Grande Prairie area. If nothing else, at least we have the area. It seems to be consistent for this particular sighting at the Tim Hortons. At that time, she indicated that she might travel to Prince George. So now we're hearing that there might have been an interaction with that family member. She's talking about potentially going to Prince George. She might possibly use the alias of Andy or Angie, or go by the surname of Woodhouse, which I believe is her father's last name, according to some other information I'm seeing here. Previous media releases have not generated any significant leads to bring police any closer to locating Andria or to provide any indication of where she may be. RCMP have actively pursued every investigative avenue and will continue to do so until she is found. Jumping over to dailyheraldtribune.com, an article from May 15th, 2018. So at this point, we're talking 10 years after last confirmed sighting. Investigation continues into woman's disappearance. According to RCMP, early in their investigation, it was reported Meise was last seen in Grande Prairie in 2010, but based on their ongoing investigation, it was revealed she was last seen in the area in 2008. So thank you to the Daily Herald Tribune for finding this out and clarifying this information. Just to be honest with you guys, one of the things that's a little frustrating about this case, I've looked into other articles I'm not even going to show you here today because so many publications are not doing a very deep dive in terms of the reporting. It's basically the press release type of reporting that we talk about here on the channel where, you know, the police kick out a press release and several of the publications take the big 5 points from that release, put that out as an article, and that's it. So already with the confusion going on that I'm having just looking into this case, I'm just thankful that someone actually found this information, raised it, and we're going to get some more information from them as well. We're going to get a quote from someone actually working the case here, which is another big thing that I'm happy to see. Quote, initially, the people that were spoken to indicated the year of approximately 2010 that Meise was last seen, and through talking to additional people and looking into various investigative avenues, we determined the more accurate time was 2008, said Constable Stephen Ludlow with the Grande Prairie RCMP. He also said, we know Grande Prairie was the last place she was seen. So thankfully, if nothing else, we can now ratchet down last known seen in Grande Prairie, year 2008. The month's still a little loose, but it sounds like it's in the July to September timeframe. Another quote from Constable Ludlow here. We've had leads over the course of the investigation, which we've been able to follow up on. And given we're at the 10-year mark since she was last seen, and given the investigative avenues that have been explored so far, we do believe that somebody is aware of information that would help the investigation extend even further. So we're hoping that those people or person will come forward. Kind of interesting phrasing there. Makes me feel almost like he's trying to reach someone specifically and maybe hoping that they're going to read that article. Quite honestly, I'm hoping the same thing too. If you're someone that has information about this case, we've got the number that's on the screen here for the RCMP. But if you need to remain anonymous, we've also got a Crime Stoppers number in the description box down below. So I know I sometimes do this usual rant about the coverage not being great in this case. Thankfully, we do have a few publications that dig a little deeper. They actually speak to some of Andria's family, and we get much more insight. So first of all, a very big thank you to cbc.ca for their information that we're about to go into here. It's going to give us a little more insight into this lifestyle that she was living, some of the challenges with that, potential risk factors with that as well. Andria Meise was born in Dawson Creek, British Columbia, and raised in Kelowna. Her sister, Danielle, remembers Andria being taken away several times as a child and says she spoke of abuse in care. Quote, I just remember her coming home in the middle of winter, no shoes, no coat, crying, telling us that this was the stuff that was going on in her new home, said Danielle. Danielle describes her big sister as her best friend, as a free spirit who was, quote, like a bird. Danielle says Andria was always working, often as a server or house cleaner, but when her addiction picked up, she worked in the sex trade. Quote, I was her spotter for 3 years, to where I would take license plates of the dates, write down the time and the place where she was picked up and when she was supposed to be dropped off, but there was times where she'd refuse people because she had a weird feeling about them, or she'd be returned with bruises on her face or things like that. While the two sisters lived through hard times in addiction, Andria was always up for an adventure, says Danielle. Quote, I remember she tried to go fishing and she caught a fish and she was so scared she threw the fish in the lake and ended up falling off a dock. And it was just the funniest thing I've ever seen. This grown woman just terrified of this tiny fish. RCMP opened a missing persons file in November 2012. So obviously, guys, I'm wondering it along with you. What is going on? Why is it taking so long for this missing persons report to be filed? Get a little bit of insight here. Quote, I was happy when they finally took my report seriously. Now, we frequently talk on the channel here about people having trouble getting reports in, but usually it's people having trouble getting those reports in within the first 48 hours because we keep hearing that TV show mechanism of, oh, we can't take it because they haven't been missing for 24 hours or for 48 hours yet. Something else going on here because it's taken several years, and for some reason it seems like the police that they're talking to aren't taking this case seriously. I'm wondering if it has to do with prejudice about her lifestyle, possibly the drug use, possibly the sex work. I'm not 100% sure. It's written down on all the missing posters. November 19th, 2012. And I'm like, okay, why didn't you put in the 8 times I've tried since 2006 to report her missing? Just to point out, once again, we're getting a little bit of a time discrepancy here. I don't know if potentially Danielle might have not been in contact with her since 2006, but her other sister was in contact with her, or this family sighting that happened at Tim Hortons is kind of moving this time frame. We're going to be interviewing one of her sisters, so we'll see if we can get a better understanding of that. It's hard to say what police should be doing now, says Danielle, who rates the investigation as a 6 out of 10. She says if police would have taken her reports seriously earlier on, maybe things would be different. And, you know, things already get tough between family members and law enforcement when they have a missing loved one like this. But right out of the gate with this case, this is a tough relationship. And I don't know how you ever get to the point of really trying to firm that up to help each other, because ultimately that's what needs to be done in cases like this. You know, do police solve crimes without the family's involvement? Yeah, sure. But there still takes some form of communication between the public and police, or some cooperation between the public and the police to make that work. And in terms of reaching the public, look at these articles that we look at week after week on these shows. It's normally the family members that are talking, that are using these mechanisms of media. So these things are very important that they actually work together. And in this case, I can totally understand why Danielle would be burned on the outset and maybe not trust this process a whole lot. It feels like that, you know, she's basically it's been an uphill battle right from the start. She says her sister Robin does most of the communicating with police these days, and that even after all these years, the feelings of missing Andria are still fresh. Quote, to just have her gone, it's like, I have 2 children. She has never known that I was pregnant. My sister has a daughter that she didn't even meet because she was gone. Her children, so Andria also has 3 children. She has a 20-year-old daughter who's been through college, who's in the culinary arts. It's just amazing the things that she's missing every day that she's not here. I also want to thank the Williams Lake Tribune, who also did the extra work on this and actually reached out to a family member. They got to speak to Robin. Robin Meise said her missing sister, Andria Lucille Meise, had a high-risk lifestyle and was into drugs and prostitution, but she was also really nice and would give you the shirt off of her back, said Robin. The last paper record we have of her is in Fort St. John. After that, there's really nothing, said Robin. Robin and her sister, Danielle Meise, are running out of options and find it difficult when people tell them they should, quote, just get over it, Robin added. You don't want to grieve in case she's found. It's like we're in limbo with no answers. We love her so much and miss her dearly. Thankfully, the person that I'm bringing onto the show to help us understand this all better, make some clarifications, try to understand Andria at a much deeper level, is Robin. So let's go ahead and bring her on the show now. We are welcoming to this episode of Searchlight Robin, who is Andria's sister. Unfortunately, well, I don't think it's unfortunate. Robin lives off the grid, which I think is actually pretty cool. But because of that, we can't do a video call, but we do have her dialed in on a phone call. How you doing, Robin?
Pretty good.
Nice to meet you. I hate that it's under these circumstances, but thank you so much for agreeing to help us come to a much better understanding of this case and answering these questions. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
So I wanted to start also by thanking someone named Sandy, who is a friend of yours, but kind of a virtual friend. Sandy is the one that told me about this case and asked for help. How did you guys meet?
We were playing an online game years ago together, and it was like one of those games that you build things and garden and stuff like that. And there's like a live chat. And so I built like a little cabin thing and planted some roses in my sister's honor. And then we just started talking, and yeah, everybody kind of found out that my sister was missing. And then when they discontinued when they were going to discontinue the game, before they did, we all jumped on Facebook, and that way we were able to stay in contact with each other. So.
Wow. That's really cool. And I just love hearing stories about virtual communities like that. But outside of that, it's almost like you raised awareness in the virtual world in a really interesting way, just by trying to honor your sister like that. I think that's really, really cool. And I just wanted to thank Sandy for letting us know here at Searchlight about today's case and getting us in contact with Robin. So your sister Danielle, originally I was hoping that we might be able to get her as well, but we know that she did an interview, I think you had told me last week, and this is a tough topic to have to go in time and time again. So we totally understand that Danielle can't be here today. We did share some of her observations that were in the CBC article. So we've already kind of worked in some of her information, but if you could, please just let her know that we're thinking about her, and give her a big hug from us whenever you get a chance, okay?
Thanks. I will for sure.
So the first question I had, I'm seeing different heights, and this kind of happens with these cases sometimes. I'm seeing 5'11", 5'10", 5'8". How tall is Andria?
She's 5'11".
Okay, so 5'11" is the accurate one. And can you tell us a little bit about her hobbies, her likes, who she is as a person? Because some of that information just really isn't out there in the articles.
She is a very bubbly personality. She's very happy all the time. She likes to sing, even though she's not very good at it. She's just very happy. She's very childlike. She had some brain damage when she was young, about 3 years old. An accident happened. And so she's kind of on the slower side when it comes to safety and stuff, but she just loved everybody. She was so happy. And like, even if she would try to get angry at you, it didn't really work because she was just too funny when she's angry. So
yeah, we also read a story that Danielle had mentioned about her going fishing, and when she caught a fish, it scared her, and like she fell off the dock or something.
She was so girly that she hated camping and fishing and everything. We would make her do it anyways because we were the babies. So we would make her come with us anyways, but she hated everything to do with it. But she was always there. Like, she would always come with us.
Yeah.
Even though she didn't like it. She was very city girl, very girly girl, loved her makeup and her clothes. But she would still come to the woods, which we used to appreciate.
Yeah, definitely. And in a previous conversation, you've mentioned to me that she was almost like a mother figure to you in some ways. Can you talk about that a little bit?
She was absolutely was like a mom to me. We had a very, very rough childhood. We were both assaulted, like sexually assaulted multiple times when we were young. And my sister took it upon herself to be my protector.
Wow.
Yeah. And she was like that right up until she went missing. She was very protective of me.
Yeah. We're going to talk a little bit more about statistics, particularly for Indigenous women, and it's honestly terrifying. Did she have any career aspirations in particular?
Not really. She didn't really know who she wanted to become as like in job wise and stuff like that. But the one thing she always knew was she wanted to be a mother. And she ended up being a mother. She's a mother of 3 children. She's got 2 girls and 1 boy.
Okay. Gotcha. And you also mentioned that she had done some type of volunteer work.
Yes, she used to volunteer all the time at the friendship centers. And also she loved going to the Salvation Army and volunteering. Like, no matter where she lived at the time, she would always go and volunteer her time at the Salvation Army.
Friendship centers, I'm not familiar with that. Is that a Canadian thing?
Yeah, so We grew up most of our lives in Kelowna, and there's a friendship center in Kelowna. And what it is, it's like a gathering place for Native people to go, and you can do activities or like parenting classes or craft classes. They've got like family nights, they've got dinner nights, different things like that.
Wow, that's awesome. And I've been to Kelowna. I was actually just there in 2019. Just a beautiful, beautiful part of the world. One article stated that no specific tribal information was available for Andria. Do you know your tribal ancestry?
Yes, our tribal ancestry is, our band is the Frog Lake Indian Reserve in Alberta.
Okay.
It's just that they probably put that because we're not status.
Okay.
But that's the band that our family comes from. We just didn't, like, my dad never applied for his status card.
Gotcha. And you actually create Aboriginal art, right?
Yes.
Is that tied particularly to your tribe, or?
Not really. I've actually moved more towards healing now. My dad taught me a lot of Native healing and stuff, and I actually work with people now healing childhood trauma.
Wow.
So yeah. And I work with like plant medicines and stuff like that. So
yeah. Well, I mean, that's something I kind of bump into. The more of this work that I do is sometimes the wounds that hurt people wind up being something that they want to help others with, and they can do very significant things in that way. And it just, I'm really thankful that you were able to, take what you had gone through in your childhood and you're turning that around to help others. I think that's really amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a work in progress. It was very hard to get to the point where I'm at now.
Yeah.
But now it gives me hope to see other people heal. Like there's nothing in the world that can give you that feeling of watching someone grow and heal from the pain that they were put through. So
yeah, that's amazing. So according to some of the info we saw from Danielle, it seems that Andria was taken from the home several times in your youth and placed into foster care situations. I know we don't want to drive into it too much. We've already kind of touched on the fact that you guys had a tough childhood. I assume that it's related to some of that.
It is. Yes.
Okay. But later in life, you two actually lived together?
Yes.
What was that like?
Yeah. Amazing. Fun every day.
Really?
Yeah. When we were supposed to be going to sleep, of course, because we were adults, right? But we never, basically our childhood, both of our childhoods were stolen from us, right? So can you imagine two kids or two adults who had their childhood stolen, moving in together and just becoming adult kids? Okay. Yeah. So her bedroom was diagonally across from mine in the house that we were renting. And we would literally sit on our beds and leave our doors open and have water fights from her room to my room, food fights. It was amazing. It was the most fun ever.
Wow, that's awesome. And I'm really thankful. That you had that time together as well. The CBC article mentions that Andria has children. You told us she does have 3 children, including a 20-year-old who I guess is a bit of a good chef at this point.
She's a little bit older than 20 now.
Yeah. And
she is an amazing cook, which is the complete opposite of Andria. Andria was a horrible cook, but I do have to say she was very smart because every boyfriend that she would ever get was a chef. So she didn't have to cook because she would just get with really good people that could cook.
I like it. So are you still in touch with her children pretty regularly?
Yes, only on Facebook though, because they live on the West Coast and I live on the East Coast now. So.
Okay, gotcha. Do you know how they're dealing with her disappearance at all? Is it something that comes up between you and them?
Well, I know for a while they were not told all the truth about when she went missing and stuff. They were just told that she didn't want to have anything to do with them and stuff like that. They were not actually told, from what I was told, they're not told that she was actually missing.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because they were placed in homes, and it wasn't until they became adults that they found out that she's actually legitimately missing, and
Right.
that's why she wasn't coming around. Because if it wasn't for that, my sister loved her kids. My sister had problems, yes, but those kids were the world to her. She did their everything to her.
Yeah.
And so she never would have gone that long without speaking to her kids, because it's the only thing in her life that she ever wanted to do was be a mom.
Right, right. And as a matter of fact, it seems like the whole recognition of her being a missing person has been a battle right from the start. Danielle mentioned that it was a struggle to get Andrea officially listed as a missing person with the RCMP. Doesn't actually occur until sometime in 2012. Can you tell us about that whole process, what you guys were going through with this?
It was horrible. It was absolutely devastating and horrible. Me and my younger sister tried and tried and tried and tried to get a missing persons report out on her. My sister has a past of running away and stuff, so that kind of was a bump in the road. They were like, oh, well, she's probably just off somewhere. And then we would keep going back and keep going back. And we never gave up and we never let down. Like, we were going. And then eventually we had people from the RCMP in Kelowna telling us that they were not going to waste their resources on someone like her because of her lifestyle and stuff. So it was a terrible fight for 5 years. It took us
Wow.
never giving up for them to be able to finally open a case on my sister, which was horrible because when my mom went missing, it was, my mom looks white. And it wasn't a fight at all. I walked
didn't
in
know
there,
this.
told them that.
I didn't know your mom
Yeah,
went
my
missing
mom.
as well.
Yeah, my mom went missing when Danielle was 17, and I was the one that went and got contact with the police to say, hey, my mom's missing, whatever. And it was nothing. They just did it so fast.
Yeah.
And I was grateful, but at the same time, I was absolutely disgusted.
Yeah.
Because at that time, I was still fighting to get a case open on my sister. And when it came to my mom, it was a complete different story. They opened it up. They found her within like a month.
Wow.
So, and yet with my sister, it took them until 2012 to even do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you could just, what was the outcome with your mom?
She was found. She was just wanting to leave.
Okay. Okay. And
yeah.
So when do you recognize that your sister is actually, that Andrea is missing?
When she stopped contacting me.
What year would that be?
2008, July of 2008.
Okay. Okay. And that's something that's a little strange. We hear about that a family member, I believe it's an uncle, sees her at a Tim Hortons, and there's kind of some conflicting information that comes out about this. It's reported that that was in 2010. No, it was actually in 2008, according to some of the later articles. Can you clear that up for us a little bit? What was that sighting about? Is it confirmed? Do we know that that was actually her?
Yes, it was actually her. It was in 2008. It was right before she went missing. And that was my uncle who had reported, but he didn't say anything because he didn't know she was missing. But at that time, she technically wasn't missing. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's why he didn't report it. Like, there's a report saying, oh, he didn't report it. Well, no, because at that time she wasn't missing. It wasn't until just shortly after that that she went missing.
Okay.
So,
okay.
And that was in July of 2008.
Right. So I've seen some mention of her possibly heading to St. George. Other articles say that she was heading to Calgary in 2008. Constable Ludlow stated Grande Prairie is where she was actually last seen. Can you help us figure out where is her last known location? Where is she last confirmed to be?
Her last known location was Grande Prairie, Alberta.
It was Grande Prairie. And how
Absolutely.
was that? How was that confirmed? Do you know?
That's the last paper trail for her.
Okay.
And that's the last place anyone has actually physically seen her.
Okay. Okay. But you did also find a bit of a paper trail. According to the Williams Lake Tribune, you found some paper record of her also being in Fort St. John on that 85th Avenue street, right?
Yep.
But that's prior.
Yep. She was in Fort St. John. That's where she had left Kelowna to move to Fort St. John.
Right.
And that's where she was originally. And then she left from there to Grande Prairie.
Okay. And do you know why she wanted to move there? What was the catalyst? What made her move to Fort St. John in the first place?
My sister is, let's say, a free spirit. She does not like to stay in one place for very long. And she also used to follow her, like if she got a boyfriend or something, she would basically follow them to the ends of the earth.
Right. So is it a guy that she moved out there for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually. She met him in Kelowna and they both together moved to Fort St. John.
Now, does he continue in the story as she moves to Grande Prairie?
We don't know.
Oh. Do we know
There's a lot.
Has he been questioned? Or?
I've been told he has. There's a lot of missing information, let's say, and I was basically told by like the really good guy, the one that you just mentioned, Ludlow.
Yeah.
Stephen Ludlow was amazing. He said that there's a lot of the case that he couldn't tell me because of holdback information. And I watch a lot of crime shows, so I understand that.
Yeah.
So, but as far as I know, he was interviewed.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Wow. Okay. I found several references about possible alias that she might have used. They talked about Andrea Woodhouse, Andy, and Angie. Are you aware of any other aliases or names that she used?
Angela.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like you had a pretty good relationship with Constable Ludlow, and he was sharing what information he could with you. What's it like currently? Is there an investigator you're in touch with now?
No, it sucks. It's right back to how it was before Stephen took over. When Stephen had the case, that was the best that it could have ever been. He's the one that got my mom's DNA. He's the one that put my sister into the data bank. He, went looking on, he got a tip from somebody and they went out into the woods looking and everything. And ever since he got shipped out, I haven't really heard anything. So
Wow.
It's like dead air, just like it was before he took up the case. So it's very frustrating.
Yeah, I bet it is. So I suppose no real recent updates in terms of the investigation, no new developments or anything that you've heard of recently?
No.
Okay. We do know there is the interview that your sister did, so at least we're going to get a little more press that's kicking around this. Of course, we've got this episode that's going out as well, so we're hoping that might help push things forward a little bit. But I also wanted to ask, how do you feel about media coverage, particularly of Andria's case, but also of cases of Indigenous women in general?
I think they could do a lot better job.
Yeah.
I've reached out to media, a few different ones, to put the story, and they just kind of throw it out there. It's almost like they don't do the proper research. And they just take bits and pieces of what you want said, like what you say, and they just take bits and pieces, and they don't really explain anything. I don't know. I don't want to say anything bad because it did get us coverage, but how much? Like, how good did it do?
Right. I think you're
really do much good.
You're making a great point. There's the quality of coverage is also an important factor, and I can tell you guys worked at it because there are a few pretty good articles. But to your point, a bunch of the articles that I've included in the sources for today's video, they were just repeating the same things over and over and over. And we kind of see that sometimes with this I don't want to say that it's lazy coverage, but it's essentially they're taking like,
Absolutely.
yeah, they're taking like a press release and they're just putting the details of that press release out, and then they just publish that. No one's making a phone call or talking to family or trying to dig into the additional details. But you guys pushed past that, because I did see a few articles in particular where it was more personable and there was more detail than those kind of simple ones. So,
like one of the ones, I think it was in Williams Lake,
mm-hmm.
or Kamloops, either Kamloops or Williams Lake. I talked to a reporter and I did an article with him, and he was amazing. He asked a lot of questions. Because I was basically reaching out to every single place that I knew she has been in the past.
Right.
So that's what I did, because I figured, okay, well, even though she went missing in Grande Prairie, if I can get this spread everywhere,
yeah,
maybe it'll help, right? Because people move, and that's the way I thought about it. Okay, people move, especially if anyone knows anything, which I think someone does. They would be in the same sort of lifestyle as my sister. And I know from my sister, she moved a lot. And so if she moved a lot, well, they probably moved too. So I just tried to reach out to as many people in many places as I could.
Yeah. Well, you did a good job, because enough information was there. I was actually surprised. We've covered cases with much less information than this one had out there. But I have seen some progress just being in this kind of missing persons space with major media and social media recently about trying to bring more awareness to Indigenous cases. But the stats that are reported, the numbers that we're seeing, they're telling us that we still have a lot of work to do, and maybe awareness isn't enough in itself. According to the Assembly of First Nations, Indigenous women and girls are 5 times more likely to experience violence than any other population in Canada, and this violence tends to result in more serious harm.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's horrifying.
Yeah.
It's horrifying.
More information on this. Indigenous women make up 16% of all female homicide victims and 11% of missing women, even though Indigenous people make up only 4.3% of the population of Canada.
Mm-hmm.
It makes no sense. It's terrible. It is literally an epidemic. In the U.S., our National Institute of Justice reports that 84% of Native women have experienced some form of violence in their lifetime. Robin, go ahead.
It's terrifying, and I mean it. Sorry. When you're in it and you're Native and you see it for your own eyes, and then see that the numbers aren't being properly reported, because there's more than what they're saying. Right. It's devastating. And then when you're like us, or like me, who's a mom, you don't want to let your child out of your sight. Yeah. At any age, because you know what goes on. Yeah, absolutely. So I know in Canada, there was kind of a big push for trying to get better data on it, for trying to understand it more over the past few years. The RCMP has been doing some analysis, and that's where I'm kind of worried about the point of raising awareness not being enough. Basically, the numbers that they're seeing, they looked at a data set from like 2016 to 2018, and then they compared that to older data that they had from 80s and 90s, and the number is just, there's actually a little bit of an increase lately. It's really, really terrifying. And I don't know if that's because the older data just isn't as accurate. Maybe they're getting to better numbers now, but it's pretty scary if you look into the information. And in the description box below, I'm going to have a whole separate section just of links for you guys to learn more about those stats, about the efforts to try to understand this, and some commentary from some very good writers about what's going on with all this. According to one article at The Guardian written by Brandy Morin, quote, "A national inquiry into MMIWG first named this crisis a genocide in 2019.
In June 2019, Justin Trudeau stood solemnly in front of a few hundred survivors and families at the release of the final report of the inquiry. The Prime Minister promised to do whatever it took to dismantle the violence ravaging our women and girls. An action plan was due in June of 2020. The government has postponed it, citing COVID-19.
Yeah, that's crap.
It is, yeah. And I know...
it's total crap because they don't... I mean, even the inquiry was crap. My sister's case happened to be one of the ones that they chose to look into, and nothing came of it. It's just a front. That's the way I feel. Like, that's my personal opinion. I think it's a front. Yeah.
No, and I understand that. And I mean, it's a systemic issue as well. This is not something, that's what I mean by the awareness doesn't seem to be enough. Is it a starting point maybe because we're at least having some form of conversation around this? Yes. But like we're seeing in this example, when we get to the point of trying to bring some action about, or take that conversation to the point of, okay, let's start making some policies and some mechanisms for trying to help this. Yeah, we're supposed to get an action plan out in June. We can't do it because of COVID. How does COVID stop an action plan? I have no idea. But
exactly.
Yeah, and I was also moved. I saw another article about a walk that was done with Indigenous women that were walking different lengths kind of across the country to raise awareness to this, and they're having racial slurs thrown at them while they're doing this effort. They did get support as well, but just to hear that people can't get behind this still in this day and age is pretty heartbreaking.
Yeah, I mean, you see it every day. People say, oh, there's no racism. Yeah, absolutely there is. Yeah. Absolutely there is.
Yeah.
We live it every single day. I mean, there are good people out there, don't get me wrong. This is why I do what I do in helping heal people, because there are truly good people out there.
Right.
But there are some really nasty people still too.
Yeah. So I just wanted to... I don't want to take too much attention away. We're here talking about Andria, but I did want to frame this conversation properly, and that's why I've included that. Much more information in the links down below if you want to dive into this, and please do. But to pull it back to Andria, Robin, what's your gut telling you about what's going on here? Are we concerned about this man that she went off with? Do we think that Andria might have decided that she's just leaving the family and that's that?
No, I've always been very intuitive, and I don't feel like she's here anymore. I feel like she's gone, and I feel like we're looking for her body at this point. She never would have gone this long without contacting me. She would have never gone this long without contacting her kids. Right. It's just an impossible scenario. It took me a very long time to come to terms with that. And I also contacted two separate psychics, and yeah, they one works with missing, like with like four missing people and stuff like that, and has a very good track record. And she basically told me exactly what I dreamt happened, and so I don't think at this point we're looking for her alive. I feel like she has crossed over. She is, and when I was talking to Stephen Ludlow about this a couple of years ago, he basically has the same gut feeling as me, is that she is no longer alive.
Yeah, it's tough when you look at I hate boiling it down this way, but we had to be realistic, and that's part of why I was trying to frame this conversation. The numbers about violence that happens towards Native women in particular is certainly a factor in trying to figure out what's happening with this case. So yeah, it's really heartbreaking. I know that you are helping to heal other people. Do you have someone that you go to in terms of helping you with these feelings about what you're worried happened to Andria?
No, I actually just came through it on my own. Honestly, just a lot of hard work on my part.
Yeah.
A lot of working through things. That was another thing that was kind of kind of felt like a slap in the face, was the victim services.
Tell me about that.
So my sister went missing in 2008, and the victim services didn't even bother contacting me or anyone in my family until years and years and years later. I think it was like maybe 5 years ago, or at top 6 years ago.
Wow.
So by the time she contacted me and saying, "Oh, I'm going to send you a package of stuff for what you're going through in the mail," I basically just told her, like, what is the point?
Right.
I've had to deal with this on my own with no help, with nothing for this long. I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't need you guys to call me anymore. I don't need your, it's just, it maybe if you would have reached out before when I was crying and I was a complete wreck, like I still cry a bit now, but because of everything that I've gone through, and I've just taught myself, like this is what it is, and we have to deal with it. Like we can't, crying is not going to bring her back.
Yeah.
So I fight for people to know what's going on, not only with my sister, but with the countless other people. Like we are not the only ones dealing with the exact same stuff.
Right.
When we were involved with the inquiry, I was shocked to find out how many other people, their loved ones, go missing and they don't do anything, and they have the same struggle when they go to report the person missing and they don't do anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's absolutely disgusting and devastating, and especially for us who, go years and years thinking that we're the only ones that care.
Right. Yeah. And then you get contacted years later about a packet coming.
Yeah, exactly. And she sends me a package in the mail saying, "Oh, this is how you deal with grief." Yeah, I'm pretty sure I figured it out on my own already. Thanks.
Right. So Robin, if someone out there is watching this and they know what happened or where Andria is, what would you say to them?
Just have a heart and just tell us where she is. We just want to have a spot to go. She had a tortured life her whole entire life ever since she was a baby. Just give her back. Like, I don't even care if you do it anonymously. I honestly don't even care. Just do something. Just, my mom is so devastated. She wants her baby back. And I'd really love to have my sister, just have a place where we can go and see her.
Yeah.
And put her to rest.
Yeah. I think we all deserve that. And especially you and your family deserve that right now. So if you do need to remain anonymous for some reason, we do have a number for Crime Stoppers in the box, the description box below. I know on the screen we're showing the RCMP number. If you don't have to be anonymous, use that number. But if you do have to remain anonymous, we do have a Crime Stoppers number down below as well. You guys know me. I'm always trying to find ways to honor the people that we're looking for. I found out about an organization called the Native Women's Association of Canada. It's an aggregate of 13 Native women's organizations from across Canada. It was incorporated as a nonprofit organization in 1974. They state, quote, "Much like a grandmother's lodge, we as aunties, mothers, sisters, brothers, and relatives collectively recognize, respect, promote, defend, and enhance our Native ancestral laws, spiritual beliefs, language, and traditions given to us by the Creator." So in Andria's honor, we have made a donation, and I want to thank my brain scratchers that support me through Patreon and PayPal and by buying merchandise. Thank you guys so much. We've made a donation to this organization already. Robin, anything?
Thank you so much for that.
Oh, absolutely. And we're here for you going forward. If there are any developments or if you need insight, if you guys decide that you're doing any fundraisers, anything that we can help with, please feel free to reach out. Anything that you wanted to say before we end today?
I just want to say thank you so much, because you make it a little bit easier, because now we don't feel so alone and we feel like other people care.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when this video comes out, take a look at those comments down below, and I think you're going to see there are a few thousand people that come along with me in terms of caring about this case from here forward, and we're here for you guys. So
Thank you.
please, once again, next time you talk to Sandy online, give her a big thank you from me, and remember, you've got that hug for Danielle coming from me. Thank you so much for your time today, Robin, and hopefully someday I get to meet you and give you a hug myself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. A big thank you to Robin for spending some time with us, helping us understand this all better. And I just, my heart is absolutely broken for her, for this family, for what they've been enduring for all these years. It's been too much, but I'm also just kind of rattled by the larger issues that are going on with Indigenous missing and murdered women as well. So I hope that you'll take some extra time, look at the extra links that I've included down below. I've also included the report that, quite honestly, Robin doesn't hold a whole lot of stock in. But even with that distrust of the report, the numbers are still terrifying. The stories are still terrifying. So I've got that information down there as well. I really appreciate you guys. I appreciate all your support, especially helping me make a donation like we did again today. So I just want to thank some new patrons. Thank you, Barbara Hanley, Wendy Trevette. A big thank you to Aaron Grosh and M.O. On top of them, we had a few people increase their pledges. Thank you, Misty Kate. And Misty Kate, thanks for always showing up on the live streams in the secret studio. And Denisa Henkel, thank you for increasing your pledge as well. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit lordandarts.com, where you can sign up for PayPal, Patreon, or buy merchandise. All of it keeps us here helping these families in these very, very tough situations. And I really appreciate you guys allowing us to do that. Once again, I'm just going to put it out there. If you have information about this case, please use that information in the description box down below. Call one of those numbers and send it in. Let's try to bring some answers, maybe some peace to this family. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend. I'll see you again here on the Lord and Arts channel on Monday with a brand new episode of Case Cracked.